scatter graph using Excel. So imagine this is your raw data table, and on my raw data table I have 50 countries listed down here, and I have 3 columns. I've got GDP per capita, carbon dioxide emissions per capita, and sulfur dioxide emissions per capita. So I'm going to make 2 different scatter graphs. GDP is always going to be on the x-axis, and the gas emissions will be the y-axis. So the first one I'm going to make is with GDP per capita and carbon dioxide. So I would suggest copy and paste the data over to a new sheet, because you want the first page to just be your nice clean raw data and no other fuss and kind of bother to be in the way. So I've just copied and pasted my data into sheet 2, and now I'm going to make a scatter graph. So when you make the scatter graph, you don't select the countries, you select your 2 variables, and GDP per capita is on the x-axis because it's the independent variable, meaning that the carbon dioxide is affected by the wealth of a country, not that the wealth is affected by the carbon dioxide emissions. So that's why GDP per capita has to go on the x-axis. So as you can see, you select the data, B and C, just select it like that, and then go insert. To make the scatter graph, you go insert, and then see around here you can see a scatter graph. So select scatter graph, and I always go for the first one. First one's good. So there's a nice little scatter graph there for you. But remember, you need to label your axes. So to label your axes, just make sure, like say if you're clicked out here, just make sure you've clicked somewhere in that space on the chart so that it's outlined. You can see the dots around the outline. So if you missed that, click out of here, click back in here, and then you go to design, and if you go to quick layout, so quick layout, and I would select the first one, because see the first one, it starts to set up some axes titles, and you've got a title there, and you can just fill in your titles. Definitely get rid of this thing here because it's kind of in the way and it's not necessary at all. So let's get rid of that. Now this little axis title here, what I'd suggest, if you've got perfectly good titles up here, what's missing from my GDP per capita title is I should probably have what the currency is, like is it US dollars or what is it? But I don't have that on there, so that's a bit naughty of me. On yours, if you do that, make sure to always have the units. And for this title here, I'm just going to copy and paste this title. So it's the 2002 carbon dioxide emissions per capita, and I spelled tons wrong, so let's fix that. Tons per person. And CO2 should really have a subscript, so maybe I'll say carbon dioxide. That's probably better. Carbon dioxide. So then there's no notation issues. So carbon dioxide is a better title for that one. I don't really need the year in there, but whatever, I'm just going to leave it. Actually, no, I don't want the year in there, because I'm going to explain at the you would explain at the beginning of your project what year it was. So let's pop that in there. So let's delete that. And then you would also give it some kind of title as well. So I might go back and give that a capital C. Capital C, yep. And make sure to give it some kind of title as well. So in my case, I'm going to say GDP per capita versus, I might just put VS, carbon dioxide emissions per capita. Notice I still make sure I've got the whole title in there. To some degree you can rename them, but sometimes there's a problem if you do that. So there's a perfectly good scatter graph, and you'll be asked to interpret your scatter graphs. So if I was to visually interpret this, I would definitely say there's some kind of positive correlation. So the wealthier the country, the more carbon dioxide emissions there seems to produce. And what kind of correlation? Is it weak? Is it moderate? Is it strong? In this case, just looking at it, I would say this is a pretty moderate correlation. So moderate positive correlation is how I would describe this one. And then let's make a second scatter graph. So to make a second scatter graph, you want to select your countries again. You don't actually need the countries, but I like to keep them there just out of interest. But you need your GDP per capita, and this time we're going to graph it against sulfur dioxide. So copy your sulfur dioxide. So notice now there's no carbon dioxide in this one. I'm doing GDP per capita and sulfur dioxide. So let's make a scatter graph again. I just select these here and I go insert, scatter, select the first one, and then I've moved it out here. Just make sure you're clicked around there so that it's highlighted around the outside, and then go quick layout, select the first one. I would suggest get rid of that and start to put your titles in and so on. And that's basically it.